I, 25/M, confused anxiety in a relationship with love and chemistry. How do I get excited for stable relationships? I, 25/M, have only been in one serious relationship that lasted 5 months, but had a few failed attempts at a relationship since I was 18. I just realized that throughout all my relationships/attempts at a relationship, I confused my anxiety for chemistry/love. What I mean by that chest-tight feeling that I get while thinking, does she like me? Or what can I do to spend more time with her? There would be tons of highs and lows during the courtship, and with my last relationship, there was nothing but highs and lows throughout the relationship. In my last relationship, I would constantly think about why I was even in the relationship if I wasn't satisfied with the relationship, but then she would show some effort, and my anxiety and stressed out feelings would disappear. This cycle would repeat itself. I realized that this constant hot and cold behavior is what would get me hooked emotionally with a person, and, ultimately, this would get me hurt in the end. The flip side is there were plenty of girls who would show a lot of interest in me, but I wouldn't be interested. Back then I thought it was because there was no chemistry, and I thought they were being too clingy. Looking back on it, it wasn't because there was no chemistry, they were just too available for me to get a spark. It's been 6 months since I broke up with my ex of 5 months, technically my first love, and it still hurts like a motherfucker seeing her with her new boyfriend. Though I have to remind myself that she's probably treating him the exact same way as she treated me, and the love that I felt wasn't love, but constant anxiety about the relationship. So I'm seeing a new girl now, let's call her Sarah, who showed a lot of interest in me and even asked me out on a date. We've gone on a few dates, and honestly I had a good time with her on all of them. But I don't feel that spark. I don't feel my chest caving in as I constantly worry/think about whether she liked me or not. I don't feel stressed out/excited when she texts me like my ex did when we first started dating. When my ex and I started dating, she warned me that this might not last and that she has a horrible track record with relationships, which kept me on my toes and stressed me out. The thing is, I don't want to feel that way anymore. I don't think it's healthy. I want to make this new relationship work with Sarah, but I can't get over the feeling that it needs to be wild and chaotic for me to feel that spark. How do I move past these thoughts and get into a stable relationship? Last note, I've been going to therapy since January of this year, which has been very helpful. My therapist told me my ex was neglectful and verbally abusive. Too long didn't read. I have been in relationships where I would confuse my anxiety about the relationship with love and chemistry. So now when I don't feel that in a relationship, I brush it off as I don't have chemistry with a person. I don't think this is healthy. How do I move past these feelings so that I can pursue a more stable relationship? You know how some days just suck, and you have a really long day and everything sucks and all you want to do is go home and crawl into bed and sleep. And then when you finally get into bed everything is better and you just relax. For me, a stable and loving relationship gives me that same feeling as when you can finally crawl into bed at the end of a sucky day. Being with someone I love means I get the security and relaxation to finally let all the bullshit of the day go and just exist in a happy and safe mindset with them. We create our own bubble of happiness and security. Of course sometimes we're stressed etc. And that's normal, but we're always less stressed when we're together. The spark that you're describing really does sound like anxiety. For me, what I recognize as a spark in my relationship is when I find myself thinking about the person, wanting to spend time with them, not in an anxious way, but in a wow this person is so great, I want to see them again way. Sexual spark is when I find myself thinking about them sexually, or wondering what they'd like, or when I just want to touch them all the time, affectionate touching, not only sexual touching. It's okay if the sexual spark is not there all the time, but I think the wanting to spend time together spark should be fairly consistent. I absolutely love how you described what a stable and loving relationship is for you. That is exactly how I feel in my current relationship. I loved reading that because it just reminded me of my growth in relationships, so thank you. I have experienced this. My previous relationships were abusive and I confused my chasing for desire and affection for actual love. I'm now with someone who I feel calm with, and it was so strange. But I also feel inexplicably happy whenever I'm with him and not in that constant worry of I need to do something to show them I'm worth staying with and make sure they still love me. I had a lot of therapy in between my last relationship and this one. That's what I would recommend. CBT especially helped because it helps you identify your ways of thinking. Highly recommend researching into it. But honestly, it took a good relationship for me to let go of the horrible attitude I previously had and open my eyes to show me these things. Best of luck to you, op. I think part of it is recognizing and relabeling your feelings. Currently, you're labeling things as passion or spark that maybe aren't. Try to think about positive feelings versus negative feelings. Are they nice to experience? First think about attraction, as that's easiest. What feelings do you get about someone you find attractive, irrespective of whether you have a chance with them? Now think about who you like to spend time with platonically. What do you feel about friends and acquaintances versus strangers and people you dislike? Now you can try to put those in a romantic relationship. Do you experience these feelings more, or differently, with Sarah than with other people? A relationship doesn't need to start as anything more than someone you're attracted to and enjoy spending time with. If you have those feelings, give yourself time to settle into the relationship and figure out, do you tend to get more positive feelings versus negative ones when you're with them or thinking about them? It'll take some time to iron out, but just identifying how people make you feel can do wonders for figuring out what kind of relationship you should have with them. ETA, relationships don't have to be exciting, but you should feel happier with the relationship than without it. I knew my husband was the one for me when I realized that spending a weekend with him didn't feel an imposition on my personal space like a weekend with a friend would. It's not exciting, but it is something I only feel with him and I like feeling that way. Look into attachment styles, especially anxious and anxious avoidant attachments. Not a substitute for professional help, but it can be really useful to see your tendencies in relationships explained and laid out so you can be more mindful of them when you start feeling hot and cold. Where do you think your need to confuse drama with happiness came from? How do your parents get on? It was basically a loveless marriage. I've never seen my mom ever be coupley with my dad. My dad worked most of the time, so I never saw him. My mom would also be super hot and cold with me. She could go from being a very sweet and loving person to yelling and hitting me in another. I had an extremely turbulent relationship with my mom, and I rarely felt loved by her. My family tells me I'm extremely emotionally unavailable to them, which is true. I wish I could fix that, but it's too painful. My 23F boyfriend, 25M, whom I live with, is always on Reddit. Update: we've set app limits via his iPhone settings and he is on Reddit much less. He no longer gets flustered from constant Reddit news articles and doesn't spend so much time on his phone, though he does still like to watch informative videos on YouTube. He is sleeping earlier since he's not on his phone so often and we are more productive during the day. A downside I'd like to notice that he gets restless and bored at times and has less ways to de-stress, but we are working on filling our free days with exercise and activities. Overall, this solution seems to be holding up pretty well for us. Thank you for your suggestions. My boyfriend is always on Reddit. He gets extremely stationary at times even when we need to run errands and when he needs to go to work remotely. Things take 2x as long because he's on his phone so much. We gotta go somewhere in 10 minutes. Make that 20 because he'll spend the whole 10 minutes looking through some obscure subreddits and linked articles before getting ready. He needs to get out of bed to start his work day. He's busy getting flustered at the latest Reddit news reports. We've tried uninstalling the Reddit app months ago, but he makes his way to the browser Reddit. I think he knows it's a problem, but it's not so much of a pressing problem that he feels the need to cut down on the hours he spends on it. How do I get him to see that he might have a problem with being on his phone so much? Too long didn't read. Boyfriend is always on his phone and it's interfering with daily tasks. I've always found that the time I spend browsing the internet always increases when there is something happening in my life that I'm wishing to avoid or unhappy about. The internet allows me to divert my mind. I'm not sure, but maybe that's the case with him too? If that's the case, then you addressing the underlying cause could solve the problem. I've always found that the time I spend browsing the internet always increases when there is something happening in my life that I'm wishing to avoid or unhappy about. I'm in this post and I do not like it. This thing is low-key happening with me also. I think a solution could be have at least 1 hour every day, wherein you only work on errands or things that are being procrastinated. And that 1 hour would be at a fixed time every day, with one possible holiday per week. Maybe that could help you too. I have not tried it, however. One way is to talk about actual issue you have, instead of about cause for issue. I have to wait for you and we are late again, or while you are reading, I am waiting here sort of thing. Also, I found my usage of Reddit goes up when I am getting socially isolated due to working alone too much. Also, I found my usage of Reddit goes up when I am getting socially isolated due to working alone too much. Not to mention there's a fucking pandemic still happening and everyone is working from home. All of us scrolling aimlessly through Reddit and offering advice on not scrolling aimlessly through Reddit. Lamau. Are there any stresses in his life that make him easily distracted? I've noticed my husband gravitates to playing video games or browsing Reddit more when he's stressed with work. He's typically very good at regulating how much time he spends in front of a screen and puts in the effort to spending quality time with me, doing his chores, etc. But if he has a particularly stressful day at work, then he needs that time to turn off and distract himself. You may need to refocus how you approach the problem. His actions are causing you to be late, cutting into quality time with you, etc. I, 28F, genuinely don't care about anyone except for my boyfriend, 30M. Why? Any tips? Too long, didn't read. Apart from my boyfriend, I really don't care what happens to anyone I know. Although confusingly, I feel a lot of empathy for people being discriminated against and I cry at nearly every film I watch. What is going on? I love my boyfriend and care about him a lot. We've been together for 4 years and we are very happy together. I want to spend the rest of my life with him and I am pretty sure he feels the same way. However, I genuinely don't care about anyone else in my life. I wouldn't say I hate them or anything, but if they died, I don't think it would bother me much. As a bit of backstory, my childhood wasn't great, but it could have been worse. My mum brought me up by herself, although she had her own difficulties being autistic, which was kept a secret amongst my family. She was just seen as the weird black sheep of the family and I only found out she was autistic when I was 16. There was emotional and physical abuse from her as a child, so our relationship was pretty non-existent growing up. I've always been close by my grandmother and have always told people that she's more like my mother. I met my dad when I was 9, but I've never lived with him. We're not close at all. Met my boyfriend 4 years ago and moved countries to live with him 3 years ago. I didn't think twice about doing this. Sure, I cared for my gran, but we could still talk on the phone or Skype, so it didn't bother me leaving the country. She was deeply upset by it though. Since then, my boyfriend and I have visited my grandparents once a year, either just before Christmas or over Christmas, although not this year due to COVID, which TBH I'm fine with. It really doesn't bother me that I only see them once a year and that I won't even see them at all this year. We speak maybe once a week on the phone, but again, I'm really not that bothered about calling. I just know that it's the socially accepted thing to do and maybe I would regret it once they're dead. Now regarding my boyfriend's family, it's really bothering me because I genuinely don't care about them. Sometimes my boyfriend and I go out for a meal or drink with his sister and her boyfriend, and it's perfectly fine, we're able to have a conversation etc, and I think I can fake being interested pretty well, but if I never saw either of them again, I wouldn't bat an eyelid. I don't understand why though, as they've been very welcoming to me and there's no reason for me to feel this way. Likewise with my boyfriend's parents. His mother especially is a very emotional, kind, loving and warm person. She's completely welcomed me into the family and often refers to me as her third child. I can objectively say that she's a very nice person, but if she's ill or upset, I don't feel anything towards her. If she died, I really don't think I would care. She's not the happiest in her marriage and she's called my boyfriend maybe 3 times in our whole relationship crying hysterically for whatever reason, which I could hear as I was sat next to him, and all I kept thinking is that she should shut the hell up and she's behaving pathetically. Obviously I kept these thoughts to myself, but I don't want to think them. The most recent thing that happened is my boyfriend's dad was rushed to hospital, because he has a problem with his heart. His mum brought him there overnight and apparently the doctor said she saved his life. Automatically I start thinking really weird / logical things and nothing emotional. For example, I wonder what's wrong with his heart. From a curiosity point of view, will he die? What are the inheritance rules for spouses? As he's now a pensioner, is my boyfriend in his will or will all the money go to his mother until she dies? I also then started to think some negative / snide thoughts like, well, getting some fresh air won't solve this problem, as his first answer to anything when someone is ill is they should get some fresh air and go for a bike ride. Lastly, I do have friends, which you all might find surprising, although I've often lost touch with them over time and not lost any sleep on it. I have a friend who I message on WhatsApp a fair amount, as we're doing an apprenticeship together. However, I'm fully aware that we probably won't talk again once we finish our apprenticeship next year. Other than my boyfriend, I really don't care about anyone I know. The weird thing though is that I probably couldn't watch a single film without crying my eyes out. I can cry at the smallest thing. If I see any injustice going on or if people are being discriminated again, I feel empathy for them. Does anyone know what on earth is going on with me? I know they say fake it till you make it, and I think I do a pretty good job at it, but it is exhausting and I wish I didn't feel like this. It would be so much easier to care about others and to not have to hold in my inappropriate thoughts. Edit: this is my first post on Reddit, so I really didn't expect to get so many replies. Thanks. I also didn't think that I would get so many useful / positive comments. I was really expecting people to call me a sociopath, say that I am a monster and my boyfriend should leave me, so thanks for giving me useful feedback. I have realized that I definitely need to speak to a psychiatrist, as I cannot solve this problem alone and I don't want it to ruin my life, my relationship with my boyfriend or my relationship with his family. I will also consider the fact that I could have autism. However, I really am unsure about that. In some ways I think I definitely could, in others not. For those of you who also experience having negative / sadistic / inappropriate thoughts, I really would like your advice. Thoughts are being pretty overwhelming right now, so much so that I cannot keep my damn mouth shut and have accidentally let a few things slip this evening, which I really should not have let happen. How do you do it? When they're so frequent, do they then qualify as intrusive thoughts? Right now, I cannot think of a single positive thing right now. All I can think of are really atrocious and sadistic things and it's driving me crazy. I've had a shower, listened to music, watched YouTube etc., but nothing will distract my mind. I'm thinking of watching a horror film to maybe please the sadistic thoughts. Maybe it will work. After I am fully aware how messed up this is / sounds.